as the National Programs Chair for the Sigma Gamma Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I am going to be your moderator for this session. And so I want to thank the panelists in advance. Your experience and your expertise gained through your participation in your respective organizations will be valuable as we navigate this discussion on some of these key issues. Before I kick things off, just a couple of housekeeping items. I'll ask that everyone other than the facilitators and the panelists mute their lines so that everyone can hear. Our chat room is being monitored by my co-facilitator, Jeremy Hosey of SGL. So if you have a question for the panel, drop it in the chat and Jeremy will pose it to the panelists for you. So just to make sure that everyone is comfortable using the chat, I have a question for the audience. So if you could go to coffee, tea, or grab a smoothie with a figure from history, who would it be? So drop your answer in the chat.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome. All right, so it looks like everyone. There's some interesting ones there. I've got Thurgood Marshall, MLK, Malcolm X, Barack. Quite a few different ones out there. Harriet Tubman. Okay, well, thank you all. Well, fantastic. So it looks like everyone has been able to navigate the chat and knows where to find it. So the way that we'll do things is that I want audience participation. So make sure that if you have a question for the panel, make sure you drop those in the chat. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'd like to do is just kind of give a high level bullet point introduction to our expert panel of guests this evening. First up is Ms. Yakina Edwards. Ms. Edwards is a graduate of Jackson State University.
I'm mute.
You're on mute, Brother Sims.
There we go. I'm sorry. So let's try this again. So what I'm going to do is introduce the panelists. I'm just going to give you a high level kind of bullet point, and then I'm going to let them kind of fill in some of the gaps. So first up, I have Ms. Yakina Edwards. She's a graduate of Jackson State University and the University of Houston. Go Cougs. She is a member of the Chi Omicron Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And she has served there as the Connection and Social Action Committee Chair since 2022. Next in our panel is Mr. James Payne. James is a board certified attorney with the law firm of Provost and Humphrey in Beaumont, Texas. Mr. Payne has been selected for the Texas Super Lawyers list by Thomson Reuters. He has been selected for inclusion in the Best Lawyers in America every year from 2006 to 2022. He's a life member of the NAACP, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity, where he served as the past Grand Sire or National President. James is also an author of the book, I Am Healed, But I Am Still Sick. So welcome, Mr. James Payne. And then finally, we have Dr. John Ogletree. Dr. Ogletree earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. and his law degree from the South Texas College of Law. He's an ordained minister and the founding pastor of First Metropolitan Church. And he's also served as a past trustee of the Cy-Fair Independent School Board. Dr. Ogletree is also an author. His book titled, What's in Your Hand? God Can Use the Ordinary to Accomplish the Extraordinary, which is available on Amazon. So with that, you've met our panelists for today. So we're going to kick things off, and I just want to give them an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about themselves. So first up, Ms. Edwards, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your organization, your chapter, and some of the areas of focus or initiatives you've been a part of in the social justice and or electoral process space.
Good evening, everyone. I am Yakina Edwards. Like Mr. Sims said, I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where I was initiated at the Jackson State University Gamma Rho chapter. I'm currently a member of the Chi Omega Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Chi Omega Omega was chartered April 12th, 2004, and I have been a member there since 2021. I've been the Connection and Social Action Chairperson since 2022, and the areas of focus that we want to hone in on are voter education, voter mobilization, voter registration, candidate forums, and public policy forums.
Thank you much. Mr. Payne, same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, and some of the organization that you're involved in, and some of the initiatives that you've been involved in as well.
Great. It's also great for me to be here. Let me just say I pledged and was initiated into the AWMU chapter at University of Houston, so it's proud to be amongst a fellow Coug, go Coug. I am now still in Beaumont, Texas. I am with the grad chapter in Beaumont, Texas. I have served as as you said, the national president or international president of Sigma Pi Phi Boule, which many people think is not really familiar with it. It is actually the oldest oldest fraternity ever established. Alpha was the first collegiate fraternity, but the actual oldest fraternity was actually Sigma Pi Phi, established in 1904. And I've had the pleasure of serving as their national president 2012 through 2014. One of my goals, very similarly, has been to force, encourage, struggle, pride, getting young Black males engaged in the political process. We've done that with various initiatives, trying to get them educated on the issues that are being affected, that will be affecting their future. So that's been kind of one of my main focuses from this Sigma Pi Phi perspective. In Beaumont, I'm really involved in getting out to vote. So that has been my main thrust, actually, for the last 28 years.
Thank you much. Dr. Ogletree.
Thank you. Besides serving at First Metropolitan Church, I also am the religious affairs chair for the NAACP Houston branch. And gosh, we do a myriad of social justice initiatives and from the NAACP Houston branch office. Also, our church is part of the Metropolitan Organization, which is about 36 congregations that help teach people how to organize to speak truth to power and to get things accomplished in that vein. And also, I am also president of Pastors for Texas Children, who support and push forth public schools and try to guard their existence, their funding, and as those are the things I've been involved in. I'm a former school board member of Cypress Fairbanks ISD, 117,000 students, and third largest school district in the state of Texas, and 22nd largest in the United States.
All right. Thank you much, Dr. Ogletree. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm gonna ask one question, and then we're gonna go to the chat and see if we have any questions in there. First up, I just want to ask our panel, what challenges and obstacles do Black organizations face in today's political and social environment, and how do they navigate and kind of overcome those? So let's go to Mr. Payne first.
One of the things I think that's probably the most challenging is to educate. With organizations, we do a lot of things, but we do them individually. And one of the things that I think is important for organizations to do is to collaborate with other organizations that are like-minded doing some of the similar things. The Alphas, the Kappas, the Omegas, the AKs, all the Divine Nine, everyone has a focus on voter education, voter participation, and things of that nature. But we're doing it individually. And I think we should have a greater role where we will collaborate together and with other organizations, whether or not they're Greek or other NAACP, Urban League, so that we can be on the same page. I think sometimes we give mixed signals, and when young people hear mixed signals, they develop a spirit of apathy. And so I think what we could do is hopefully as an organization, figure out a way that we're on the same page. And when we're doing that, we should be able to have a strong message consistently through each organization so that we might have an effective way to get people to engage, particularly young people.
Very good. Dr. Ogletree, do you want to chime in on that as well, or any follow-up to that?
I wholeheartedly agree. Each organization and chapter has its own focus and objectives, but to look at on a broad scale on the needs of our community and the needs of our people, which are they are the same no matter what fraternity or sorority you're in. Hey, we're all fighting the same battles. So when it comes to local politics and voting, we need to have a united front, come together and work this thing together.
Ms. Edwards, you want to chime in on that as well?
I agree with Dr. Ogletree and Mr. Payne, but I also think that within our organizations, we have to have more effort in getting people involved. I think that our reach is far, and across the organizations, we have so many people that touch so many different industries. And I think that getting everybody involved, getting everybody on the same page is an obstacle I think that we encounter.
Great. All right. I'm going to go to the chat real quickly. Brother Jose, do we have any questions in the chat as of the moment?
Yes, sir. A question from the chat. How do organizations like yours fight misinformation that is currently coming from other non-Black organizations like white evangelicals?
That's a good one. I'm going to go to Dr. Ogletree on that one first, and then
yeah, let me call you back while I be clean, and that way I could jaw jack.
Would you restate that question? Would you restate it, please?
Absolutely. How do organizations like yours fight misinformation that is currently coming from other non-Black organizations like the white evangelicals?
Gosh, that is a tough one. We have to, at every chance we get, fight misinformation and disinformation. The problem even with that is in disseminating that is still having a collective, a group that understands the need, understands the priority of it. Because when you get down to local chapters, local churches, everyone has their own individual concerns, but I think we just have to stay diligent and fight it and keep our focus.
Any of the other panel members want to chime in on that one?
I think one of the other ways you can do that, you can also put it in your newsletter and disseminate it amongst your members. We have with the Boule, we have a journal that comes out quarterly. In that journal, we have an opportunity for people to specifically, as Dr. Overtrue talked about, speak truth to power. I think one of the difficulties you find in many of our organizations, some of the members of our organizations are saying some of the same things we're finding from the white evangelicals, and particularly some of our Black ministers. And I can say that because I'm an ordained minister as well. And so it becomes a challenge because you don't have a consistent theme even within the organization. And so when we start trying to put forth a strong message, you have to realize that some people inside of the organization have some of the same misinformation that's being disseminated that we're getting on the outside.
Great. Good. Ms. Edwards, anything to add?
I think the way we fight misinformation is with truth. Each of us has our own, like Dr. Payne said, we have our own newsletters, we have our own social media platforms. We have our own ways to getting to the community. So putting the truth out, getting down to the basics, putting the truth out on our particular platforms is the way we fight misinformation. We fight misinformation with truth.
Very good. All right. Brother Hosey, any additional questions in the chat?
Yes, sir. We have a few. So next question from the chat. A lot of organizations are boycotting Florida. Is this an effective strategy, or would our presence be more effective there?
Okay. Ms. Edwards, you want to start there?
Can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. A lot of organizations are boycotting Florida, and I'm sure this is probably due to their laws coming out regarding wokeism and things of that nature. Is this an effective strategy or would our presence in Florida be more effective?
I think the NAACP issued the travel ban to make sure that Black people were safe in Florida. I think that was the initial reason why they issued the travel ban. But when we think about why people are boycotting Florida, it's because Florida is coming out with laws that are setting us back. It's a regression. So we're not going forward in Florida, or any of these states for that matter. We are regressing in Florida. So I do think that it would be opportunistic for us to be in Florida, march in Florida, put out information, true information in Florida. But I do believe that we need to be safe as a people. And I believe that's why the NAACP put out the travel ban, to ban Florida.
All right. Any of our other panelists want to chime in on that one?
Actually, the Trayvon Martin situation in Florida occurred in my presidency. And so that was a big concern as to whether or not we were going to boycott Florida because of their stance on gun violence. The problem you have, some of the problems you have with that, when you look across the country, what's happening in Florida is happening right now in Texas, it's happening in Ohio, it's happening almost everywhere. So when you take that position, and I think, obviously you need to stand up for the positions that need to be stood for, but be mindful that those policies are sometimes in your own backyard. If you look at what our governor has done in Texas, it's embarrassing. And so before we go boycott Florida, we probably need to boycott Texas. That's a personal view.
I would say boycotts are difficult, but we have to remember that one of the things that pushed forth the civil rights movement in the 60s were boycotts. This country thrives on money. And we have the choice on where to spend our money.
Hamilton has relied on his ambition and tenacity.
Florida is just, I heard just recently that even with Black history, they're now saying that if a teacher teaches about slavery, that they have to also teach conversely that the slaves did get good work skills that they could use. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And I personally would want to go and spend money there. And we may go back to a new type of Green Book situation because we as Brother Payne said, it is in more than one state. But money, if it's really targeted and if it's a collective, it will be noticed. It will help.
Very good. All right, Pastor Ogletree, I'm gonna pose this question to you, and then we'll let others kind of chime in as well. The Black Church has always been instrumental in the origins, the growth, and the prosperity of historic institutions like the NAACP, the SGLC, and HBCUs, to name a few. A recent research study showed a general decline in church membership, although Black churches declined less. How does the church nurture a new class of social and political architects?
Gosh, that's a very pertinent question. There was a shift that occurred a few decades ago where the churches, more or less, who used to really populate and push the NAACP, they no longer are that active. It is difficult to get right now a lot of churches involved in the NAACP, and part of that is because some of what the NAACP stands for goes against some of the teachings of a local congregation. Not all of them are a particular denomination. So it is, as a religious chair here in Houston, I mean, it's difficult to get them actively involved in the NAACP for certain causes, yes, but being really like it was back in the 60s and 70s, that day has passed. I don't know if the same is true in Beaumont. And then too, there are other options too. And history has been evasive. Not even in our churches do we teach the history of what happened and who moved this and how we came together. I mean, we're now focused upon schools and buildings and new techniques of worship, and there's a lot of competition for our attention and for our money, and that's what we are facing. Even though all of us, I think many of us would say, it seems like someone's turning history back to the 60s. But whether we can capture that collective, that movement, that strength is yet to be seen.
Okay. Any of the other panelists want to chime in?
Yeah, I will say this. It goes back to what I think we started with. You have to speak truth to power. Let's be honest. We've got pastors that don't want to speak, and it is hurting. You know, they can't be prophets because they're trying to get profits. We've got pastors who are, and it's a different time, that are not voting. One of the things that I try to do in Southeast Texas is when I assemble the pastors, because I do believe it's going to take the church, because that's the one place, the church and the barbershop, beauty shop, that's the one place people go every week. And if we can't get the message out through our pastors, our barbers, and our beauticians, we have a problem. The problem is when we're trying to get voter turnout, and then the pastors themselves are not voting. It's impossible to get their parishioners to vote when the pastor itself won't vote. And so I've had pastors sit in meetings with other pastors, and everybody's pontificating about, the importance of voting. Well, I've got the voting sheets, and I know they haven't voted. And so if they have not voted, they're really not true to the message itself. And so I think when you see and you know your pastor is not voting, you need to call them out on it. There's some churches down in where we are that they vote together as a church. And if your pastor is afraid, one of the things a lot of people are hiding behind, well, we don't want to lose our 501c3 status. That's because the pastors are not informed about the law itself. You can speak on social issues and not violate your 501c3 status. What you cannot do is support a party. You cannot support a candidate, but you can support an initiative. And I think when you look in the 60s, we had pastors who were willing to stand on principles and initiatives and understood that they did not violate their 501c3 status. If you do not understand that, then you hide behind the rock and our message does not go forward.
Good. All right. I'm going to throw this out to the panel. Before I do that, let's go to the chat. Any additional questions that have popped up in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a few. So one question is, why is it that we cannot get together to further our mutual agenda? And I'm assuming that's the cohesiveness of the Black community. Why can't we come together, basically?
Ms. Edwards, you want to tackle that one to start?
Why can't we come together? I think it takes us to all be on the same page for us to come together. I think we have several Black organizations and we all have to be on the same page and we all have to have a common goal in order for us to get together. We also have to do things like we're doing now. Like with the alphas, I'm a member of a Black organization, we have the pastor, and we also have Mr. Payne here. So I think that in order for us to get on the same page, we're gonna have to have more discussions like this. We're gonna have to create a common goal, maybe a few bullet points, a common goal, and this is what we want to do. This is how we wanna move forward as members of these Black organizations to mobilize and get our community on the same page. So I think it takes conversation, it takes discussion, and it takes us to sit down and make sure that we have what it takes to take it to the community so they can fall in line.
Mr. Payne, any additional comments on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the issues you have generally is kind of something, I hate to go back to church, but the same reason we have with the church. We have a church on every corner, but everyone wants to be the head deacon. At some point, you can't have everyone leading because you don't have the same message. So I think when you can get organizations, as she's saying, to come together and we have a unified message and we're consistent with that, I think we have a better chance of changing where we are. One of the things I see as I deal with this around the country is we spend a lot of time talking about the issues and we don't talk about an action plan for solutions. And so as far as I'm concerned, we already know we have a problem with voter turnout, voter participation, voter registration, education, liberation. We already know that. We can spend the next hour and a half telling stories about our experiences. The truth of the matter is when we get this body of people together, what we need to do is to develop, like as she said, a bullet point of what are we going to do when we get off of this call. Everyone should have something that they should do when they leave this call if we really want to make a difference. Just discussing the problem is not going to change anything. It has to be an action-driven plan.
Very good, very good. Mr. Edwards, you mentioned getting on the same page, and I'm going to throw this out to the panel, but I'm going to start with Dr. Ogletree on this one. Ms. Edwards mentioned getting on the same page. Back in 2022, the Texas GOP made a concerted effort that they were going to target local elections and get their slate of candidates elected to local offices in particular. I'm going to start with you. Obviously, you've got some history there. Can you tell us a little background there about this effort, and maybe some strategies that we can employ going forward that will help us all get on the same page?
Thank you. That is so true. The strategy that was formed a few years back is to focus upon the local and take over the local elections. And it has operated well for them. I'm on the school board, was on the school board here, and I am a victim of their thrust to take over the local elections. And they were able to do that because most people in our country, and especially us in our culture, focus upon the national. We focus upon the big one. That's when it seems like everyone is asked to vote. And they turn their focus upon the local elections, and the local is what affects all of us more than the national. Just at the local level, you've got the Harris County judges, the commissioners, the county clerk, the county attorney, the district clerk, the county treasurer, tax assessor, collector. You've got mayors, you've got city councilmen, you've got constables, judges, the school board, you've got mud districts, you've got the fire departments and commissioners, to those in the local areas, and they have taken over and put forth, they're just in the school board, put forth this lie that all that was being taught to our children was critical race theory. And they were able to persuade people in doing it well, that if any school district is instructors are teaching about diversity, that's critical race theory, or inclusion, that's critical race theory, and that their students are being indoctrinated, and that those who favor diversity are Marxists. It was quite an experience, and they're prepared to do that again in this school board election that's coming up in my community. But the lack of interest in the local is what has hurt us and will hurt us if we don't change our priorities and our focus.
Any of our other panelists want to weigh in on that one as well?
Well, as I said, I'm about action. So I agree, local elections are everything. And I think we're missing the mark, because on the non-big election, non-presidential years, a lot of things slip through the crack. And then we wind up having to deal with policies that impact our ability to have a future. You look at the state of Texas right now, we have 31 senators, 19 of them are Republican, and 12 of them are Democrats. If you look at the demographics of Texas, we actually have more Democrats in the state of Texas. They're just not voting. So the question is, what can we do in our community when we get off of this call to make that change? One of the things that we've done in Southeast Texas is you can't outspend in our community the money that's pouring in the state of Texas to create these bad laws. Senate Bill 17 of doing away with the history and diversity, equity, inclusion. All the money that poured in to do those types of initiatives is astounding. We cannot compete with the money. What we can compete with is at the voting ballots, voting polls. And we don't have to spend money with advertising and signs. One of the initiatives we created was One Reaches Seven. That's simple. Everyone has 7 people that they have in their phone and make them responsible, not just saying, hey, will you go vote? You are actually responsible of making sure that they vote and whether or not you have to take them to the polls, go with them, feed them, whatever, but you are responsible for 7 people and then have them responsible for 7 people. I did it through the church. If you do the 3 layers of that, 98% of our Black churches will vote. That doesn't require money. That just requires you to get on your cell phone that we all have and send a text message. Have you voted? Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to get up. No. Let me go. I'll come get you and make sure that we're accountable. If we do that, we will change these numbers from 19 to 12 to where it should be. If you look at the demographics of Texas, it should be closer to 18 for us and 14 for them. But we're just making that process take place. So my challenge to everyone who's listening and to every organization is create a strategy within your organization that allows you to put people in the polls and vote, whether or not it's on a national election or especially a local election, because if we don't do that, policies are going to be created that will hinder our ability to ever make a change.
Fantastic. All right.
I think to extend that point, I think the strategy is to try to narrow the cognitive dissonance. I believe that sometimes there's cognitive dissonance between what is actually happening and the voter. I think that sometimes the voter doesn't see that this is actually happening or this is actually affecting them. So when we think about local elections, we think about back in 2021, where the state of Texas actually passed SB1, where it seems like they're targeting the most populous county, which is our county, which is Harris County, the county in which I live. This is the most diverse county. It is the most, and it's the county that votes mostly blue. So in 2020, Harris County, the President Biden won Harris County in 2020. Last year and 2022, during the gubernatorial elections, Beto O'Rourke won Harris County. What they are doing with things like SB1, things like SB 1750, in which the county attorney is now suing to keep that bill from being enacted. So what we have to do is let people know they are targeting us. They are targeting our communities. They don't want us to vote. So I think that we have to try to narrow the dissonance between the target, how this is going to affect us, and what's actually happening. So I think the strategy is trying to do that. One of the strategies.
Great. All right, let's go to the chat for a minute. Any questions in the chat, Brother Hosey?
Yes, sir. Question from the chat. In what ways can we increase young voter turnout from individuals who have given up on the political system and or feel their vote is making little to no change in our society?
That's a good one. All right, Dr. Ogletree, you want to take a stab at that one first?
Yes, I believe everything starts with education, being informed. One action that I believe that we should take in all of our communities and do it through churches, through fraternities, sororities, or however we can do it, is have civic academies where we get people informed on elections, who's running, what power do they have, and help them to understand how their vote is so vital to this, and reduce it to so they can see that this affects me. I believe the majority of our voting electorate is ignorant when it comes to the different offices, what role they play, and how what they do affects them. And I think if we do something that takes some initiative, we can start a process to get some informed voters. And when we inform them, I think they will vote. That's one thing that I want to suggest.
Let's go to Ms. Edwards, because I know this is something that's that is important to you.
I agree with Dr. Ogletree. I agree that we need to go back to basics. We need to let people know what these particular offices are. How does this affect me? If I vote this way, how will this affect me? So part of my job as the Connection Social Action Chair for the Chi-Omega chapter is to ensure that we have voter registration setups at our community events. So we had a community event at Hicks Elementary back in April. And so we're going through, we set up our voter registration table. So we're going through asking people if they're registered to vote and if they want to vote. So I came across this young woman and she was not registered to vote. So I asked her, would you like to register to vote? And she said, no. I said, why? And she said, because my vote doesn't count anyway. So back to what Dr. Ogletree was saying, we have to go back to basics. Last year, what we did as a social media campaign for Chi-Omega was we took 6 of the state offices, like governor, lieutenant governor, land commissioner, and attorney general, agriculture commissioner, and we went to basics. Like, what does this person do? A lot of people know that the governor is the highest office in the state, but do you actually know what he does? Do you actually know that he appoints the Secretary of State? Do you know what the lieutenant governor does? So I think information and education is the key. So, and if people can be informed at the basic level regarding what these offices are, how this is going to affect me, I think that it'll help us go into the right direction.
Mr. Payne, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I think education is key because I do believe most of our voters don't know exactly what's at stake. And I see in the chat, some people question about how can we overcome it with the gerrymandering. The offices that Ms. Edwards just talked about, these are statewide offices. And yes, there's a lot of gerrymandering going on, which is allowed for why we have such a difference in our Senate. But when we start talking about a governor's seat, lieutenant governor, agriculture seat, that's something that gerrymandering is not taking, it's not causing. That's because we're not voting. And I want to get right onto it because just 6 months ago, what Ms. Edwards was talking about it has occurred. They are targeting those blue counties with legislation. They just came out, the governor, which is not subject to the gerrymandering issues that take place, our governor just forced business courts down our throats. But what happens is we have elected our judges in Harris County, in Dallas County, and the governor has said, I'm going to create a separate court for my business entities. But he didn't put it across the state. So these business courts are not across the state of Texas. They only apply in Harris County, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, where we're voting blue. And so if we get out of our comfort zone and get to those boxes, and I think the local elections are key, and gerrymandering is clearly a problem that we have in the state of Texas. We can file suit in federal court. It is being reviewed right now. The problem is that we have a president, unfortunately, Trump, who has appointed 1/3, almost 2/3 of our federal legislators that's reviewing this. And so, not surprisingly, they're probably not going to find gerrymandering as a problem. But where we can make a difference is with our governor, because he sets the policy that is impacting our community. And gerrymandering does not affect that.
Fantastic. All right. I'm going to throw this one out there to the panel. How do Black organizations navigate intersectionality and address the unique challenges faced by Black women, for example, maternal mortality, health equity, looking at LGBTQ plus individuals and other marginalized groups within the Black community? I'll throw that out to anyone on the panel.
I think that we have to continue to, advocate, and we have to continue to lobby for legislation that's going to support our community. Black women are 3 times more likely than their white counterparts to die of pregnancy-related issues, according to the CDC. So as a sorority, we hosted a national letter writing campaign to our senators with regard to Black maternal health. We also wrote letters to our senators chapter-wide, and we also did it regionally. So what we have to do is we have to continue to lobby for this legislation to support. We have an annual AKA Day at the Capitol, where we go to Austin and we talk to our senators and we lobby for legislation. One of the bills that we lobbied for was HB 12. HB 12 was a bill that allowed a mother, a Black mother, or a mother to have Medicaid 1 year after giving birth to ensure that she would have help with postpartum, to ensure she would have the help. So that bill was actually passed. So it does help to legislate. It does help to advocate. It does help us to continue to try and lobby for policy that's going to help with these issues.
Any other comments from the panelists? Nope. All right, let's go to the chat. Any additional questions out there, Brother Hosey?
Yeah, we still have quite a few pending. So I'm going to kind of skip around because I want to go to this one. Democrats in Texas have not won a statewide election since 1994. Is there a problem with gerrymandering if the maps are unfair? Can we file a federal suit because it violates the Voting Rights Act of 1964?
Well, the good thing about that is that question is we've got 2 attorneys who can kind of speak to it. Mr. Payne, do you want to take a stab at that one?
That there are already suits filed regarding the gerrymandering, and unfortunately, they're going to courts for review that have been appointed by Donald Trump, and so we're obviously going to have to take it to another level because we don't have the numbers. Quite frankly, we can scream and yell, but if we don't have the numbers, it's just not going to happen. I think one of the things we got to go back down to the basics. And I want to follow up with what Dr. Ogletree said at the local level. We have to start going to these city council meetings, school board meetings, county commissioner meetings, not individually, but as groups, because they've got to see our presence. And if, it's great to go to Austin, but, Governor Abbott doesn't care about who AKs or the alphas are. But the local school board members, when you go as a chapter, it has impact. And that then, when you go to Austin, you're going to meet with people who already know who you are. And so when we start trying to file these lawsuits, what you're trying to do is get people who are like-minded to join with you in that effort. Senator Royce West has done a fantastic job of moving this issue forward in the state in Dallas. The problem is he's only got 11 people with him. And so he can beat his chest all he wants. They know they've got the numbers and they can pass whatever they want to pass. He gets Boris Miles locally to help him, Senator Miles. It's just 2 of them. they need some help. And so, yes, we can file lawsuits. Lawsuits have been filed. Unfortunately, they're landing in courts that are already conservative, appointed by Donald Trump. But the people who created that gerrymandering were people who had statewide offices. They were not in a district. They were statewide officers that created that gerrymandering. And now, as a result of that, we can replace them if we just get out and vote.
Any additional follow-up on the panel on that?
I think there is still some hope with that. We did get 1 positive ruling from SCOTUS, and we just hope it will apply to the Texas case that's still pending. We'll have to see.
All right, I want to get a couple other questions in on a couple different topics. this one, how do Black organizations engage with and support young activists and leaders, ensuring intergenerational continuity in the fight for racial justice? So basically, how do we get young people involved? And I'll throw that out to anyone on the panel to tackle that one.
We've got to speak their language. Unfortunately, I don't think many of the organizations, and I go back to, that's why I go to the barbershops and the beauty shops. They actually speak the language of their customers. Unfortunately, when we go to churches, many of the pastors talk about things that's not important to young people. And I'm not being overly critical of pastors, but they just don't speak what's important to them. They want to get on social media. They want to get on, I mean, we still do Facebook. They don't do Facebook. They do TikTok. So we need to get the message on TikTok. I'm not a TikTok person, but we've got to speak the language they're speaking. And then we've got to get out of their way, because just because we're doing it the way that we have done it, things have changed, and we've got to step aside and give them that initiative. And then we've got to support their efforts. Are they going to make mistakes? Absolutely going to make mistakes, just like we made mistakes. But if we don't give them a chance, then we won't be able to reach that generation, because their generation want to hear from their generation, not from old people. And I can say that because I'm with the Boule, which is probably one of the oldest organization, probably has the oldest membership. And we struggle bringing younger people into our organization. And then when we get them into the organization, they've got to be 50 or 60 years old before they can lead. That's a problem. That happens in organizations, it happens in churches. That doesn't happen in barbershops. You go in barbershops, you see young barbers, you see young beauticians, and their customers resemble that. They'll tell you in most churches, your membership is going to be 10 years where your pastor is. If your pastor's 85 years old, your membership's going to be 95, 75. You get a young pastor, you're going to have a young congregation. We have young leaders, we're going to have young followers.
Ms. Edwards, you want to jump in on that one too? From you. Gotcha.
I agree with Mr. Payne. I think that we have to speak their language. I think that the message is the same, but the methods are going to have to be different in order to get younger people involved. Being in a sorority, we have a wide range of ages, from those that are golden to those that were initiated last year or this year. So I do believe that we're going to have to use different methods that I don't think I can speak to at this point, but methods that are going to get younger people engaged and younger people willing to go out and fight like our founders did.
Pastor Ogletree?
Yes, one of the things that I think is true today is the younger generation. They are cause oriented, and what we have to do is show them and demonstrate to them that we are cause oriented. We are concerned about people in displaced housing. We're concerned about the homeless. We're concerned about the hungry. We're concerned and invite them to the table. And let them speak. Let them listen to them, and let them know that we, from a church standpoint, that we're not just internally focused, but we're externally focused. And I think if we get more of a outside cause orientation, we can win them. Let them see how faith applies. Let them see how politics can help change that. But we have to get in the fight. What they see as the fight, what the fight really is.
Okay. I saw a question in the chat about asking that the panel kind of touch on PACs and super PACs. And just a day ago, the CBC announced the formation of a PAC called the Rolling Sea Action Fund. It's aligned, but not directly affiliated with the Congressional Black Caucus. But their goal was to mobilize Black voters and flipping the House majority for Democrats. It's kind of a hybrid PAC that can raise unlimited sums to spend on ads. Can you, one of the panelists, can you touch on what is a PAC or a super PAC? So that we can have a little bit of better understanding of that.
Well, that is the new operational tool in election process. I will tell you this, in our local school board election, we had an infusion of money from these political action committees, from these PACs that don't live in our community, don't know the issues and the people, but they had that agenda, fight CRT. They can raise a lot of money and they can fund causes. Our school board election is in November. Already 2 of the major ultra conservative far right PACs have already distributed mailers in our community, talking about CRT, indoctrination of students, don't let the liberals win, and you just, there's no way you can fight it. You can't stop them from the misinformation and disinformation. You can't stop them from the mailers. What you can do is do a good job of communicating to your local and to the people in your community. There are people who do resent that. There are people who are not going to buy into that. And that's grassroots stuff, door to door, having meetings, and getting them to know you, and hopefully some good PACs will put some money out, but it's just what goes on in our day and time.
Let's be clear too. PACs were not created for us.
That's
PACs
right.
were created for communities outside of us. So when you give to a particular candidate, you might be limited to $2,500. Very few of us give the maximum amount to a candidate. So what they do is they create PACs. So institutions and corporations can come and put their money into these PACs. And when they can't go beyond the $2,500 limit, they put it in the PAC. And they send the same message that their candidate would send. It's just paid for by the PAC. PACs were never created for us.
For us.
That's and I appreciate the CBC creating the PAC because they're trying to balance what's already out there. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the next governor election, the conservative side will start with $30 to $40 million of PAC money before we even start the election cycle. And so our candidates will come in and we're doing chicken dinner sales and fish fries to try to raise money to campaign when they've got $30, $40 million already in the PAC, ready to send out commercials and billboards. We can't fight that. What we can do, I think, is what Dr. Ogletree said. We got to go back to the basics. We got to go back to grassroots, getting door to door, knocking, making sure people vote. We're not going to be able to outspend these corporations, these institutions that are already funding these PAC. It's just, it's too great. And so when you start talking about super PACs, I mean, when you can't give a president more than $31,500. How many people we know have given President Obama, over $31,000. Very few. If you look at President Obama's actual annual average campaign contribution, I think it was like $25. He doesn't need a PAC. He needs people. PACs were created for them, not for us.
Look, our hour together has flown by, and since we're almost out of time, what I'd like to do is give each of our panelists about 90 seconds. Give us, what is your one takeaway or your charge that you would like to leave the audience with? I've heard some fantastic ideas already. I've heard the Mr. Payne with the One Reaches Seven campaign. Dr. Ogletree talked about the Civic Academy. Ms. Edwards talked about their voter education social media campaign. That's phenomenal. What is one charge that you'd like to give our audience that we can take away with and run with when we leave here today? And I'll start with you, Ms. Edwards.
All right. I am an advocate for education. I'm an advocate for information. My one charge is to ensure that the voters understand what is going on. I think a lot of times that the information misses. So voter education, voter information about the offices, information about what this particular office does. If I vote this way, how can this affect me? Removing that cognitive dissonance between the voter and the actual election is my takeaway. Information, education, information.
Mr. Payne?
Well, I will start with my One Reaches Seven. I would ask that everyone on this call, we've got 52 people on this call, if everyone would ensure that the next election, I don't care if it's a statewide election or a local election, make sure that you plus 7 people vote. You don't take their word for it, you ensure that 7 people vote. And then when they vote, you encourage them to make sure 7 other people vote. If just the people on this panel that's on this call right now would do that, you've got, let's see, 2,548 votes. We don't need a PAC. We just need our cell phone. We can do that by mobilizing 7 people and encouraging those 7 people to get 7 people. And we can fight PACs with just our cell phone.
Fantastic. Dr. Ogletree, bring us home.
I agree with Ms. Edwards and Brother Payne. And I would just add to this, we have to fight the cynicism, fight it within ourselves, because the fight can look too insurmountable. And even those of us who are on this Zoom tonight, who vote, can get to the place where when you hear what the Supreme Court ruled, or hear what the governor did, or hear what that cynicism can rise up in us. We've got to fight it, and we've got to speak against it when we're talking with our friends, our colleagues, our relatives, our neighbors. We need to just stay the course, keep believing, stay in the fight. And I just always believe right will win over wrong in the end.
All right. Well, thank you to the audience for your questions, to our panelists for their time and their expertise around these important issues. I invite you all to continue to engage with us in our effort to promote more politically and socially engaged organizations with true and meaningful impact on our communities. We welcome you to join us at Quotes for a Sigma Gamma Lambda social and send off to the Alpha Phi Alpha National Convention in Dallas. And with those parting words, I'm going to turn it over to Cecil Dorsett, who is the chair of our Alpha Impact charity.
Thank you so much, Brother Sims, for moderating, and to our panelists. It was a wonderful, awesome, informational session. And I think this what a wonderful way to end this week of informational sessions that we had. Thank you so much. I know you guys could be doing a million and one other things, but you took your time to educate us on some of these most important issues. And thank you to our audience for being here with us. And so, like Brother Sim said, tomorrow we'll end this week of informational sessions with a social at Quotes, Willowbrook. And we'll love to shake hands with you guys and see you there personally tomorrow if you can. But with that, I thank you guys so much for taking your time to be with us tonight. And with that, good night to